Welcome everyone to my talk, The Knowledge Grows. So who am I? Just a little bit about me. I am Beth Tucker Long, and these are my kids on the side here. I am a stay-at-home mom as well as being a full-time PHP developer. I run a consulting firm. We do mostly web consulting. We do a lot of WordPress, a lot of Laravel, a lot of Drupal, a lot of just regular plain PHP backend stuff. I also run multiple user groups, and I participate both in mentoring and being mentored as an apprentice as well. Another big thing I'm a part of that I hope you'll indulge me while I mention just for a minute here is open sourcing mental illness, osmihelp.org. And what we're working on doing is breaking down the stigma of talking about mental illness and trying to help improve mental illness resources in workplaces and research on it, especially in the tech industry. So if you're looking for more information on mental health or any resources that you can share at your workplace, visit osmihelp.org. So let's start with a little bit of a story. Once upon a time, there was a wide-eyed young college student who loved all things computer. Spoiler alert, it's me. So she had originally wanted to go into oncology research. She loved working in the lab, but once she had a taste of programming, there was no turning back. And yes, just so you know, I wasn't smaller back then. The laptops were really just that big back then when this story started. So she built a fantastic band list website. So yes, embarrassingly enough, this is the first website I ever built. And believe it or not, this is the fancy new design when I redesigned it. The previous design was even worse. So this is the first website I ever made. This is how I learned web design. I was super into bands at the time, and I made a huge list of every band I'd ever heard of. This was long before Google search and things like that. So surprisingly enough, I did get a decent amount of traffic, according to the super cool counter that I built. But getting a job as a programmer back then was sort of a weird thing because there weren't really web development degrees at the time. Web development was so new that there really wasn't a way to study it. You just sort of had to try things out and learn on your own. So I managed to learn just enough programming on the side while I was in school to land a job as a Perl programmer with an academic nonprofit after I graduated. Now, Perl programmer, you may say, just bear with me. So I arrived at my first day of work ready to take over the world. But then a funny thing happened. I spent the whole morning filling out all the forms, all the paperwork, NDAs, and the like, and I was finally granted access to the server. So I log into the server, and lo and behold, there is no Perl on this server at all. Instead, there's this language called PHP all over the server. Oh, my boss said, isn't that the same thing? Nope, not even close. Not the same thing. Oh, well, here's the list of changes I need done in 2 days. Thanks, bye. So, needless to say, I panicked a little bit. I scrambled and I crammed, but needless to say, 2 days is not a lot of time to learn an entirely new language, especially when resources are pretty thin on the topic. I tried reading every book I could find, and yes, we used paper books back then as well. I tried to find online tutorials, but there just wasn't enough information out there. Now, normally, I never asked for help online. It wasn't a very friendly place online back then, but I had no other option. So I logged into IRC and turned to some strangers for help in the PHP channel. And I found some amazing people who helped mentor me on the differences between Perl and PHP, and they helped me get up and running on the basics of PHP and where to find information so that I could get my job done. Needless to say, this cemented my love of PHP forever. This opened up a whole new world for me. I had loved programming from the start, but this amazing mentoring experience cemented PHP as one of my favorite things in the entire world. Now, fast forward many years down the road, and I am still deep in PHP code every day and loving it. Now, fast forward a few more years down the road, and I'm at my local user group meeting. And someone mentions that they are coming to the user group because they want to make a career change, and they're considering learning different languages. And one of them is PHP. Without even realizing it, I'm exclaiming, "You have to try it. You'll love it. PHP is great. The community is awesome. The code is great. You're going to love it. You have to learn it." And suddenly, I was on the other side of that mentoring relationship. I was helping him learn the basics, understand the difference between PHP and what he knew in the past. And even though I thought I got so much out of being mentored on PHP, being the mentor, I found benefited me even more than when I was a mentor, when I was being mentored. I had to rethink through everything I had learned. I had to justify why things are done the way they are, or why I said things should be done the way they are. And these helped cement all of my foundations and help me really create a solid base of what I know. So why am I telling you this? Well, first of all, mentoring changed my life. It changed my life in such an amazingly positive way. And I want that for everyone else. I want you to feel excited and happy about what you're doing. But also, I love the tech industry, but we're in trouble. We are struggling with massive, massive labor shortages. We are predicting this year alone, 2020, the technology, media, and telecommunications industry will be short more than 1.1 million skilled workers globally. That is a lot of people we are lacking in our industry. Not only that, but a survey of over 3,000 chief information officers and technology leaders found that 65% of them said recruitment problems were actively hurting their IT initiatives. We need more people, and we need to find a way to keep the people that we have. The people we have aren't staying. A 2017 study of LinkedIn data shows that tech has the highest turnover rate of all business sectors at 13.2%. This is significantly higher than other industries. And the average IT position takes 51 days to fill. So by the time we get someone up to speed and taught so they can start working, we have to start the process over again with someone new. But mentoring can help. There's hope. We can do this. How does mentoring help? Well, first off, it increases the labor pool. You may wonder how. Well, mentoring people gives us access to people who may not otherwise be able to go into programming. Many potential programmers do not have access to traditional higher education paths. And even if they do, many schools and universities are still not offering the programming classes that students need to get jobs in tech. By mentoring people on the skills they need, we open up our labor pool to vastly more people than we had before. Additionally, mentoring increases job loyalty. Some studies show that it can decrease your turnover rate by up to 38%. This is huge, especially when you couple that with the long period of time it takes to fill IT positions. So decreasing turnover rate can massively improve your labor pool. But it's not just getting people in the door. People who are mentored are 130% more likely to go on to hold a leadership position in their career. So people who are mentored stay where they are longer. Mentored employees also receive a greater number of promotions and earn more money overall than non-mentored employees. So this is a great thing for your employees as well. Studies show that employees who are mentored feel more positive about their companies. They are more likely to believe that they have opportunities for career growth within their existing company. So they're not looking elsewhere to find their career growth. And overall, they feel more satisfied with their career. But wait, there's more. If that isn't enough to convince you, I haven't even mentioned the benefits to the mentors yet. So we've talked about benefits to the companies and the apprentices, but there are benefits to the mentors themselves. Employees that act as mentors report greater commitment to their jobs and to their companies, so they are staying longer as well. A 5-year study of over 1,000 Sun employees found that retention rate for mentors was 69% versus only 49% for mentors. So having someone be a mentor convinces them to stay in their job longer. So this is also really important. They also reported greater work-related fulfillment and greater job satisfaction than those who were not acting as mentors. But not only that, employees that act as mentors also reported greater career success. The same study of Sun employees showed that mentors were promoted 6 times more often than those who were not mentoring. So that's a lot more promotions that you're getting if you're a mentor than if you're not. And 28% of the mentors received salary grade increases versus only 5% of non-members. So this is huge for the people who are being mentors as well as far as furthering their career. So this is better for companies. This is better for mentors. And this is better for the people who are being mentored. So if this is so great, why isn't everyone doing it? Well, because mentoring is hard. And it's hard to be mentored, so it's difficult on both sides of the relationship. And in an already overworked and understaffed industry, like tech is, adding more responsibilities to people or asking them to do more things can be a really tough sell, especially when companies are very focused on trying to get as much done with the limited resources that they currently have. It's also because mentoring can fail. It's not a 100% success rate. So sometimes that can make it a tough sell as well. Let's talk about another story here. So let's talk about another developer. Spoiler alert, it's me again. So my career was going pretty well. I had started speaking at conferences. I felt on top of the world. And someone approached me to mentor them after one of my talks. Well, I had the best of intentions, and so did they. We were both excited about how this was going to work out and how much it was going to help both of us. But then work happened, and I took over our user group when our user group leader left. So I had more responsibilities at my user group. I started getting tons and tons and tons of emails from all of the people who had visited my talks, and I was new to handling that, and emails started getting buried and forgotten. Emergencies that happened at my job meant meetings got canceled and never got rescheduled because of our schedules were really busy. My apprentice really needed a lot of pushing to stay on track, as they were also struggling with way too much work to do and way too much to handle. But they also didn't want to nag me, and so they forgot things as well. And eventually I got an email. You know, things are just not working out. We both had the best of intentions, but it still didn't work. We both had made a number of mistakes. So mentoring itself works, but ours didn't work. So let's take a look at some of the things that you can do to make sure yours works. I'm going to start with the apprentice side of the relationship first. So the very first thing you want to do when you want to find a mentor is you need to take a step back and define what you need first. You aren't going to be able to find what you're looking for if you don't know what you need. Now, some of the things you want to ask yourself when you're defining your needs. Why do you want a mentor? Okay, that's a really broad question, but you want to try to be as specific as possible. The more concise you can be, the better the chance that you'll get what you need. And this is critical information to help you find the right mentor. And finding the right mentor is also critical to the success. So what do you need to get out of this relationship? What are you looking for exactly? Are you looking to be maybe get a new job at a new company? Maybe you want to move into a new language. Maybe you've been programming in one language for a while and you want to change languages. Maybe you want to start an open source project, or maybe you want to reach a senior developer level. These are all kind of vague goals, but they are your big overarching goal. So you want one big long-term goal. Once you have that big long-term goal, you need to define some immediate goals. I recommend at least 3. You want these goals to be tangible and measurable. You want to be able to say, this has happened, okay? So you don't want to say something like, I want to learn PHP. This is really broad, and PHP is constantly changing. So this is something that can't really be measured as far as, okay, at this specific point is the point I officially learned PHP. That could happen at any number of steps in your learning process. So you want something much more tangible, like, I want to learn enough PHP to build an application that does X, okay? And when you're able to build that application, you'll know you've reached your goal. Or for example, maybe you want to learn object-oriented programming better so that you can feel more confident refactoring a specific application at work. And so you know when you can get through when you get done refactoring that application, you've met your goal. Maybe you want to speak at a conference. That can be a great goal too. So those are things when you know when it happens. Then you want to take a look at what is your timeline for these goals. Are these things that you need to accomplish by a certain deadline? For instance, if your goal is to be able to refactor a certain application at work, perhaps work has already given you a deadline for having that application refactored. So you want to make sure you know when do these need to be done by. If no one else has given you a deadline for accomplishing these, I recommend you still come up with some sort of deadline and not just like, oh, you know, in a few months or in the next few years. Those are too vague. Try to make it a little more specific, like, I want to do this by the end of the year. Next, you need to define what you want out of your mentoring relationship. And it's important to remember that this is a mentoring relationship. What do you expect out of this? How often do you want to meet? Are you going to want to meet in person or online, via phone or video chat? How often do you want to communicate? Is this someone you want to hear from every day, once a week? Do you want to be able to send them messages whenever you have questions, or do you want to meet at a certain time and ask all your questions at that point? Do you want your mentor to hold you accountable to the deadlines, or be very forgiving with you because your schedule is just not set up for hard deadlines for something like this? So you need to know how you want this to work and what you're going to do to interact with it. Next up, you have to commit to the work. And this is not just a simple task. You are asking for this relationship, so you need to take responsibility for this moving forward. Yes, it's also on the mentor to make sure things keep moving forward and that this works out, but realistically, this is for you. So you need to commit to taking the initiative, to dedicating the time to get this work done and keeping track of your meetings and your progress. Make sure you are able to do this before you find a mentor. Now you're finally ready to start finding a mentor. So where do you find a mentor? Well, you can ask at work. A lot of times, if you're at a company that has a larger IT department, there may be someone else in your office that is doing the kind of work that you want to learn more about, so you can check with them. If you're looking to move up in your field to a higher ranked position, find someone in that higher ranked position. Sometimes if you want your boss's job, it's hard to ask your boss to mentor you into taking their job. But maybe what you could do then is check with a local business organization like a chamber of commerce or a business support organization and find another company with someone in that position and ask them to mentor you if you aren't comfortable asking for that help where you currently work. If what you're looking to learn is a little bit more generic or is something that you want to learn for work, but nobody at work has that information yet, find a local user group on that topic. See if you can find someone, especially locally. Local user groups can be a great place if you want to find someone who is able to meet with you in person. If you're less concerned about meeting in person, take a look online. Find someone who's a speaker on the topic or who's blogged on the topic. Maybe a professor teaching a topic, teaching a class on the topic. All of these people may be able to point you to someone or may be willing to themselves be your mentor on that topic. Another place you can check is phpmentoring.org or php-mentoring.org. Now, if you've heard of this website before, it recently sort of fell by the wayside and had not been maintained for a while, but It's recently been taken over by a new group that's going to be getting it back up and running. So I would definitely say watch the website. This was a super awesome resource for not only registering as a mentor, but registering to be mentored. And it was a really nice way to find people who are wanting to be part of a mentoring relationship. There's also a PHP mentoring channel on IRC. Now, when you hop into IRC, don't just pop in there and say, hey, I want a mentor. The people in IRC are absolutely willing and excited to help, but it's important that you let them know that you've done the legwork and you really are ready for a mentoring relationship. So let them know your overarching goal and your immediate goals and see if someone is able to help you with those. Also let them know, how are you interested in proceeding with the mentoring relationship? Are you looking for something online or in person? Do you need to meet daily or weekly or just monthly? Letting them know the kind of commitment you're expecting out of your mentor is really going to help you find the right person. Now, if you've never used IRC before, it can seem a little intimidating at first because it's an older chat mentality, but there are lots of great ways to do it. There's lots of apps that you can download onto your phone or onto your computer. Or you can even, if you're not interested in installing something, you only want to ask this one question and not use it again, you can also just use the web interface on freenode.net. And so you can pop in, ask a question, get someone's contact information, and then not have to install anything at all. Other places you can look for mentors are conferences like this one. Is someone giving a talk on a topic you're interested in learning more about? If you aren't sure where people are speaking at conferences, take a look at slideshare.net. It lists slide decks from hundreds and thousands of conferences. Check on Joined In, or php.net has a conference list as well, so you can see where the conferences are and look through and see if anybody's talking about the kinds of things you want to learn about. If you're looking for user groups, php.ug has lists of user groups. That's a great place to look as well. Nomad PHP has talks as well, and meetup.com can be another place to find user groups that are on the topics you're interested in learning about. If you're looking for more of an online relationship, these kind of places can help you find a user group that's maybe not even close to you, so you're not aware of it. There's also a lot of podcasts out there, and podcasts can be a great place to look, especially the ones that feature guests, different guests each time they have a podcast talking about different topics, experts in different areas. These people have already shown an interest in volunteering to do things by being on the podcast, so they may be interested in helping you or may know other people in that area of expertise that they can direct you to. So Voices of the Elephant is Cal Evans, who we'll be talking with in a few minutes in the after discussion as well. So of course, giving a shout out to him. He has awesome people on all the time and lots and lots and lots of interviews out there. So be sure to check that one out. Now, let's switch over to the mentor side of things. Now, even though you're going to be the mentor, there is still a lot of work to be done on your side of things. And as you notice, this is starting out in a very similar place. So even though you're the mentor, you still need to define your needs too. If this mentoring relationship is not meeting your needs, it's not going to be successful either. So you need to find out, what do you want out of being a mentor? Why do you want to be a mentor? Is it just you're excited about helping someone else? Is it to improve your resume? Is it because I just told you that mentors receive more salary raises and are happier about their jobs? It's okay to have a selfish sounding reason. Just whatever the reason is, be honest about it. Don't be afraid of those selfish reasons. It's totally fine to have a selfish reason for wanting to be a mentor. You're still doing something good for someone else, and it's okay to be doing something good for yourself at the same time. Honesty is critical to a successful mentoring relationship, so make sure that you are honest to yourself about the reason you're doing this, even if that reason is just, my boss said I had to. Next up, you need to set your boundaries, and boundaries are really, really important. And this is something that a lot of people don't think about until it's too late. Boundaries are really easy to set at the beginning, and they are really difficult to put in place later. So what you need to do is define what is going to keep this relationship healthy for you. You want to make sure it's keeping your mental health safe. You don't want to jeopardize your mental health over this. You don't want to be burned out because of this relationship. But also, too, we don't want your apprentice to be surprised by any of the boundaries that happen. because apprentices do not mean to break your boundaries, but if they don't know that boundary exists, they could be hurting you without even realizing it. And we want to make sure that everything is very clear. So some of the things you're going to want to take a look at. How often should your mentor contact you? And how do you want to be contacted? Are you willing to be contacted via the phone? Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. Maybe you only want your mentor to contact you via email. Are you willing to meet in person? How about what time of the day are you willing to be contacted? Especially if you're, mentoring someone who's not in your time zone. Is it important for you to only be contacted during work hours or outside of work hours? If this is a work-related activity, it is perfectly acceptable to say, this has to happen during work hours because I am maintaining a healthy work-life balance, and this is work, so it needs to happen during the work day. That is perfectly acceptable to say, but it's important to say it from the beginning because you don't want to mentor an apprentice who needs to do this in the evenings after work to join with you, and then you find out your schedules conflict, and it's always in conflict between the two of you over when you can talk. So make sure you know. Another hard thing is, what are you going to do when a boundary is crossed? Okay, this is not something that people like to deal with, but it's better to think of in advance before you're in sort of the heat of the moment, when you're feeling emotional about that boundary being broken, when you're already feeling stressed because how are you going to deal with this? Think about it when you're in a calm space before you even start the relationship. How are you going to deal with this? Are you going to call the person and talk to them? Are you going to email them? What kinds of things might you say if they break that boundary? Doing this planning in advance makes it so much easier to handle this when it happens, and it's going to make it a less stressful experience for you. Next, you need to know what you are comfortable teaching about. What do you already know? What do you need to learn about? What level can you teach at? Are you interested in teaching just beginners? Are you looking to mentor people who are more advanced and don't need that sort of beginner hand-holding? Find out what you're comfortable with. Also, never feel that you don't have any expertise, because a lot of people I know are, oh, I'm not an expert in my field, so I can't mentor about this topic. And that is not true at all. You do not have to be an expert in order to teach on this topic. Everyone starts at some point as a beginner, and we progress, but we don't always see how far we've progressed because we're only looking at the experts in our field, and they're still ahead of us because they're constantly learning too. So it's important to realize that if you're working in this field, you have more knowledge about this than other people who have not. And even people who are at your same level, if you're working at different companies, you're working on different projects, you experience different things. You can teach people about what you know and what you've experienced because your experience is unique to you. So you have something to teach to people. But just make sure you're comfortable with teaching that. Next step. This step is the same, and it's still not an easy step, even on the mentoring side. You need to be able to commit to the work. Being a mentor is a lot of hard work, but your apprentice is not just going to do all the work for you. There's a lot of work that you have to do too, and your mentor your mentee is relying on you. So as the mentor, you need to make sure you're ready to commit to meeting the deadlines, helping your apprentice meet the deadlines, helping your apprentice stay on task. And again, defining how much pushing you're willing to do is really important to making sure this relationship is a success. So you want to make sure that if you are not comfortable pushing someone and you don't have the time and bandwidth to be able to, nag someone every day to keep them going along, make sure that you are committing to the work that you are comfortable with, excuse me, and your apprentice understands that. So where do we find an apprentice? Well, again, you can start with phpmentoring.org. Get yourself listed on there. See who's asking questions in IRC channels, Stack Overflow, Reddit. If you have a work Slack or Discord, or wherever you are comfortable going to ask questions when you have questions, see who else is asking questions there too. If you want to find someone local, offer it at work. At your next team meeting, just say, hey, I'd like to mentor someone. If anybody's looking for a mentor, hit me up, let me know. You can also offer at local schools and universities or tech colleges. You can also offer at your local user group. There are lots of places where you can check locally as well. If you're less concerned about local, you can just post it to Twitter and tag me for a retweet. I'd be happy to retweet your message asking for an apprentice. So there's lots of places you can look. You can also talk to people who are in the area that you want to mentor on and just say, hey, has anybody been asking you for mentoring and you don't have time for it? I would love to help them. So there's a lot of different places you can look. And now, after all of that, we are finally ready to start our relationship. So how do we begin a mentoring relationship? The first thing you want to do is you want to go through and make sure you are compatible with the other person. If you've both done the work of defining your needs and goals, expectations and boundaries, you want to make sure that all of these things line up. And if anything doesn't line up, it's good to talk now about how to resolve it and make sure you can resolve it before you begin. If there are any conflicts, they are so much easier to solve at the beginning of the relationship before sort of those expectations are ingrained in how you're doing things, and then things become a lot harder to change. So make sure you're sitting down and resolving any conflicts in your needs and your goals before you begin. Next up, you want to make sure that you're comfortable with each other. You're going to be spending a lot of time together, whether online or in person, and this could potentially be a long-term thing. So you want to make sure it's enjoyable for you, for both of you. This is going to make it easier to follow through on things. If it's really awkward for you to talk to each other, then maybe you need to put in some extra effort on the front to get to know each other. And maybe just spending a little more time together talking about something besides the mentoring relationship can help you just become more comfortable with each other. Or maybe if you feel awkward talking to each other, this is a sign that this is not going to work. You definitely do not want to dread spending time together, because if you're dreading having to talk to each other, then you are going to naturally pull away from getting this stuff done. And it's going to make it really difficult, and it's going to make it more mentally taxing to be in this relationship. So you want to make sure that you are comfortable with each other. Next, you want to set up 3 tangible deliverables. You can create more than 3, but I don't recommend less than 3. These deliverables need to be something tangible and measurable. So something solid that you can say, yes, this was accomplished, okay? So learning more is not a deliverable. However, learning how to write a contact form for my soccer team's website is a solid, measurable deliverable, because you'll know when that's happened when you have the contact form done. Or I want to learn how to query multiple tables in MySQL, okay? That's still a little broad, but it's more tangible because we'll know when you can actually write a query and pull in multiple tables. So these are the kinds of deliverables you want to find. Next, you need to pick real calendar dates and times for these deliverables, okay? We don't want to just say, oh, I'm going to learn this and we'll do it over the next few months. We'll see how it goes, okay? That is just asking to be shoved off when other priorities pop up, and we want to make sure this stays a priority. And having hard deadlines with real calendar dates and times is a great way to make sure that these feel like a priority to you. Another thing you can do that's helpful is use a reminder program, or you can schedule tweets and emails in advance to remind both of you about upcoming deadlines and what needs to be done. This is also a great time to discuss what will happen if a deadline is missed. Okay, if a deadline is missed, do you need to have a meeting to discuss how it's working, to see why the deadline was missed? If a deadline is missed, will you push everything back 1 week and try again? What kind of thing are you going to do? It's easier to talk about now, because when you miss a deadline, it's usually because you're feeling very overwhelmed, you're overworked, you're really stressed out. And when you're feeling those things and you're in the midst of that kind of hectic time, that's not a good time to sit down and figure out a good plan. That's the time when you're most likely to say, I don't know, I'll deal with it later. I can't handle it right now. So having that plan created in advance means you don't have to spend brain power worrying about it at that time when you are already in the thick of things. And no one likes to have relationship evaluations, but this is really important to schedule from the start. Relationship evaluations can be really difficult to ask for partway into a relationship because nobody wants to, imply that things are going badly by asking for a relationship evaluation. So schedule this right away from the start when things are not stressful. After your deliverable deadlines, always have a relationship evaluation meeting after those deadlines are met, and have a real date for this meeting as well. That way, you always have something tangible you're working towards, and you will have a time that is already set aside to talk about whether or not this is working, which can make it a lot easier for people to bring up things that aren't necessarily going well so you can improve them for the future. So, what does evaluating a relationship look like? Well, the things you're going to want to talk about are, hey, have we met our deadline? So, did we make it? Did we not? If we did, great. What helped us make that deadline? If we didn't make it, what stopped us from making the deadline? Was it a busy schedule? Was it something in the relationship that's just not working? Perhaps the mentor wasn't really well suited to the topic, or perhaps the apprentice isn't really well suited to learn about this topic. Maybe the two of you just don't have the same communication style. Perhaps the mentor likes to talk about things and just teach by talking. And maybe the apprentice needs to learn by seeing things or doing rather than hearing about it. So those kinds of learning things can be a hindrance as well, and that's okay. It's just you need to talk about those things. If you have met your goals, what's next? Where do you go from here? Is your mentor still going to be helpful to you in the future? What's your overarching goal? What's your next step towards that overarching goal? Is your mentor going to be able to help you get to that next space? Are they going to be able to teach at the level you need to teach next? Maybe you're feeling like, oh, I learned this too easily. I need someone a little bit more advanced. Or maybe they are too advanced and you need someone who goes a little bit slower and is a little bit closer to your level. Maybe this person is so senior that they're not dealing with the day-to-day that you are anymore. And so you need someone who's more dealing with us on a daily basis as opposed to an academic level. So think about where you want to go. Next, have you enjoyed this relationship? Was it really exhausting to keep up with? Has your work-life balance changed, or will it be changing over the next 6 months? Take a look. What kinds of things could be coming up? Have you decided to run a new event? Have you taken over a new group and you're running a group now, so that changes your availability? Are you going to be starting a family or getting married or moving to a new place? All of these things can really affect your availability. Maybe you're moving into a new job. Take a look realistically at what's coming up over the next time period when you want to schedule mentoring, and make sure you really have time for this. Now, what do the evaluations look like? So there's 3 main types of evaluations. The first is working well, will continue. Okay, so this is great. Things are working well, you're happy with how they're going, and you've looked at things going into the future and you know that you want things to keep going. It's going to keep working well for you. So now's your time to make sure your big overarching goal is still valid, and then set 3 more immediate goals that you want to meet. Get those tangible deliverables scheduled with your real deadlines, real calendar dates. And don't forget to schedule your next relationship evaluation meeting. Just because this relationship evaluation meeting went well doesn't mean the next one will. And not that we're having a negative attitude about our mentoring relationships, but we want to make sure that we always set those times to think through things. Sometimes things are working well, but you're not going to continue them. And that is okay to admit. So there are lots of reasons why you might not want to continue. But no matter why you're choosing so, make sure you wrap up your current relationship first. Finish up those deadlines. Finish up your assignments and your goals. Finish out the plan that you've made together. Next, talk about why things didn't work. Don't leave your mentor or apprentice wondering if they did something wrong if they didn't. If you just can't continue with this because your life it's not going to work in your life for the next 6 months, but you want to get back to it later after this time break off as you need to work on a big project for work, or maybe you're moving and you can't deal with this while you're moving, just let them know, because we don't want them to feel like they did something wrong and leave them with a negative experience if that's not the case. However, if they did do something wrong, please be kind and gentle as you talk to them about it. We want to make sure that we always let them know. And regardless of what happened, how it worked out, make sure you say thank you if you're the mentee. Your mentor gave you their time, their effort, and their knowledge. Even if things didn't work out, even if they weren't as good of a mentor as you wanted, they still tried. And it's important to let them know that this meant something to you and that you appreciate that they wanted to help you advance when the relationship started, even if that didn't work out. So what do we do when it doesn't work out? Well, this is tough, but I want you to know, a lot of people think, oh, I failed. Our relationship failed. But if you have learned what didn't work out and what you need to change next time, that is a really important thing to learn. And that can be a success even when the relationship fails. So again, it's still important to try to finish things up and then talk about why things didn't work. Did life get in the way? Are you just not feeling comfortable with this person? It's okay. Not everybody gets along with other people. Not everyone feels comfortable learning from other people or teaching other people. Maybe you just have different boundaries. And even though you didn't realize it when you started, you had different boundaries that you didn't realize you had. And that caused conflict. Whatever the reason, again, we want to just talk about this in a gentle and respectful way. We want everyone to know where they can improve, but we don't want to shame them or make them feel that they can't be a mentor or an apprentice. Now, if there was a serious issue that was unhealthy, it is okay to call that out very harshly, but most times it's just a difference in expectations. And we want to be gentle and respectful about those, because that was just learning about ourselves through this process and discovering that we need something different than we thought we did, and that's okay. Now, if you're the apprentice, be sure to still show gratitude, because there was still effort put in here, and it never hurts to leave things on a good note when you're wrapping things up. So what kind of tools can help you with your mentoring relationship? There are lots of great programs out there that do calendar reminders. Microsoft has todo.com. It used to be Wunderlist. They're now the same company. Asana, Trello, any sort of ticketing system. You can even just use issues in GitHub. There's lots of communication tools if you want to meet in person. I've got a whole bunch of them listed here. And if you have any questions on any of these platforms, just let me know. I don't have time to go through them all right now. And you can also do a lot of things to schedule emails and reminders in advance. So for instance, mass mailing programs can be used to send emails just to one person. So you can use something like MailChimp or Constant Contact just to schedule messages in advance to go to you and your apprentice. So be creative with making sure you get those reminders that you need. I recommend a GitHub repo or some way of sharing code between the two of you if you're learning about a coding topic. And one nice thing that's especially nice about GitHub, especially when you're dealing with a newer developer, is that working through GitHub, not only are you teaching them the topic, but you're also teaching them how to use Git, which is a very valuable skill, and it gives them a GitHub commit history. So if one of their goals is trying to get a job as a programmer, having a GitHub commit history can be really helpful, even if it's just your mentoring work. And having some sample code up there that they've worked on in their repo can also be really helpful. But there's lots of other great tools out there for sharing code and text. So try to find a great one that works well for you and has the type of resources that you're looking for. Now, these next 2 slides, don't try to read them. These are just for later when you download my slides. I'll give you the link in a second to download my slides. But these are tons of articles about mentoring and different tools you can use and things that can help. And so, I know I'm getting short on time here, so just one little final thought I want to leave you with. A lot of people think that I'm so overworked, I can't lose any time to mentoring, or I can't spend this time. But mentoring is not lost time from your workday. It's part of your commitment to being the best developer you can be. And it's a way that you can advance your career, improve your standing at your job, move into something that makes you happier if you're not happy where you are. So mentoring and being mentored are not lost time. Just make sure, no matter what you're doing, you're learning, you're participating, and you're constantly improving. That is going to help you be the best developer you can be. Now, I know we're going to have questions in the after discussion. I will be there as well. And I think we have a few minutes left here for questions now. But in case you need to get a hold of me somewhere else, you can always hit me up on Twitter. I'm available at my user groups. I'm sure probably not too many of you are local to me, but I am available at my local user groups. And here's the link for the slides as well. And you can also hit me up at email, so beth@treelinedesign.com. And I'm going to go back to the slides link just in case you need the slides link. All right. So do we have time for questions now, or should we just wait for the Zoom?
We have time maybe for 1 or 2 questions, and we can continue discussion on after party Zoom. So the first question was, is it a good idea to find a PHP mentoree who will be your English mentor, like win-win situation?
Okay. So it can be good. It depends on your level of English. I would say if this is your first mentoring relationship, you should probably stick to one goal. And the reason for that is it can be tough to learn something new. And if you're starting to feel frustrated because you're trying to learn something new and you're just not quite getting it, you don't want to add in a language barrier as an extra frustration. So you want to make sure this first mentoring relationship succeeds. Now, if you've done mentoring before and you already love it and you already know a lot about yourself and how you work in a mentoring relationship, then yeah, adding in some extra English practice is always a good thing. But make sure you're upfront with your mentor about that and make sure they're comfortable with that as well.
Makes sense. Okay, and the second question, what's the best way to reach as many developers as possible with your message? Like the idea, is it better to mentor only one-to-one, or is it possible to be a mentor for many people?
Sure. I would say that depends on your availability and how much time and effort you have. A lot of times, if you think about, oh, I'm going to say something. So like for me, giving this talk, I gave it to a lot of people all at once. But with a mentoring relationship, so I gave it to a lot of people all at once, but I only gave the talk once. So it seems really efficient. But with a mentoring relationship, you're going a little deeper than just saying something to people. You need to make sure they're understanding and help them out and answer their questions. So it's not just as simple as, oh, if I add more people on the same topic, I can do more at once with the same amount of effort. So it's important to remember, if you are mentoring 2 people on the same topic, that is 2 complete mentoring relationships. It's double the work. So you just need to make sure you're ready to do that.
Cool. Okay, I think we can continue with questions on our Zoom discussion. And thanks a lot, Beth. Thanks so much for your time here, and see you soon.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.